If you want to write introduction, the first thing is to know that introduction is not for a social essay. It's not the same. Writing a scientific introduction is not the same as writing an essay. So you don't write it the way you like, start the first paragraph the way you like. You don't start it with definition, explanation, and all kinds of things. The first statement in your introduction should address the problem. State what the problem is. Make sure you understand the problem and you are able to speak to it. When you have stated what the problem is, if you want to define anything briefly, fine. If you want to explain something briefly, it's okay. If you want to say the cause of that problem, it's okay. But please note that excessive definition and stories about the background is not expected in that introduction. Take all the details about history, definitions of terms, and similar things to literature review. So issues like that should go to literature review, the first part of literature review. So what we're discussing now is how to write introduction. How to write introduction. And I said the first statement in your introduction should address the problem. What is this problem that your research seeks to address? That's what you should write in your introduction. The introduction of that introduction. So after that first paragraph, what you are concerned about is the extent of the problem. How wide is this problem? How large is this problem? How serious is this problem? And in science, we describe how serious, how large, how wide with figures. Figures. So there should be figures, that statistics that will show how wide the problem is. For example, Dr. Odofin is dealing with some selected non-communicable diseases in HIV patients. So we expect that the second paragraph of her introduction should deal with the percentage of HIV patients that have non-communicable diseases, period. No ambiguity, no confusion. This is the problem you want to deal with. People that have NCDs in HIV. The magnitude is the magnitude of people that have NCDs in HIV. Don't put magnitude of HIV in Nigeria. Don't put magnitude of NCDs in Nigeria. That's not what we are dealing with. So I want to plead with you, don't put what is not the problem. Don't put it in that under that magnitude. Go straight and deal with the magnitude of the problem. You can approach it in different ways. You can approach it from global to regional and then national. How many people have this problem globally? Write it down in that second paragraph. How many people have the problem in Africa or in low and middle income countries? How many people? When I say how many people, I don't expect absolute figures. I expect you to write statistics of percentages. What's the percentage? What's the prevalence of people that have the problem in Nigeria? And if your study population is in Lagos, probably some people have studied it before in Lagos. I expect you to also include the study population in Lagos. I mean, the magnitude of people that have the problem in Lagos. Very straightforward, no confusion. After the magnitude, the next thing you are concerned about, and For your first draft that you submit to me, the write-up must have these subheadings. The subheadings I'm discussing must be in that write-up. I wish somebody can be writing for me as I'm speaking. That will make it faster. The first one is statement of the problem. That's the first subheading. The second subheading is what? Magnitude of the problem. Globally, regionally. Regionally means in Africa or in low and middle income countries. Nationally, Nigeria in this case. And locally, the particular city that you're dealing with. The third section in that introduction should be the significance of the problem. What is the significance of this problem? Why is this problem important? So we can also call it the importance of the problem. Why is this problem? Why are we concerned about it? What's so special about it? For example, one of you is studying breastfeeding. So if women don't breastfeed properly, then the children can tip into undernutrition. They can become severely undernourished and they can die. That's what makes that problem serious. So you need to think, read, study, find out why that problem is significant, and make sure that you are quoting past studies. It's not your story. It's not talk just to say what you like and just write stories there. No, that's not the intention. So you must quote past studies that have talked about the importance, the significance of that problem that you're dealing with. And make sure that this is exhaustive. You look at it from different perspectives, why it is significant. Thereafter, you move on to consequences of the problem. You will agree with me that these consequences is still related to significance somewhat. But what we expect you to discuss under these consequences are the complications of the problem. If this problem is not solved, what are the complications? What are the things that can happen? You state them. So you don't look at this from health point of view alone. For the significance, majorly health, public health significance and things like that. But when you come to consequences, you would include issues about the economic implication, the societal implication, and different things, different consequences. You need to read wide, study wide, and write different consequences of that problem. And then number 5, which is the big part of this introduction, justification for your study. Justification for your study includes justification for the study population. Why are you studying this particular topic? Why? For example, somebody is studying health insurance in this group. Why are you interested in health insurance among residents in mainland local government area? You see, why I always like people to be wide when you are choosing study population. Like if you say Lagos, it's easier for you to justify it and say mainland local government. What's special about mainland local government that people in Yaba local government don't have or makes them different? But if you say Lagos, you want to justify why you are studying health insurance among Lagos people. You can come from different angles. You can say Lagos people, some of them are actually uh, the people that live in the urban area. Some of them might not even be economically buoyant, but they just want to live in Lagos. So you need to find out that mainland, find out things that can really support why you are studying health insurance among them. Are they what's their economic status like? What's their job like? Are they are they in the high strata of the society or middle? Then you can say that some of them may not be able to pay out of pocket. Those are issues you can put under. Is Ibiye Bello on this platform?
Yes, ma.
Are you writing what I'm saying?
Yes, ma.
Okay, oh,
I wanted to be doing the PowerPoint, but I'm writing. I've posted that.
okay, ma. So the reason why you are studying that group, why are you studying this group? What's peculiar to them? You must exhaust it under that justification. What's peculiar to that group? Why why are you not studying another group? That's what you want to state clearly under that justification. You want to justify the topic and the study population. Don't forget, justify the topic, then the study population. When you want to justify the topic, you need to state that this study is not maybe is not has not been well studied by other researchers. You must say something about that. You must mention something about other researchers. Mention what other researchers have studied close to it and the gaps that exist in literature. So what are other people studied on this close to this topic? State it there and put the references. Then what are the gaps? So you can say that other people have studied this and that, but they have not studied XYZ. That's why we want to study XYZ. This thing is not difficult. If you just follow these rules, say what other people have studied. You are justifying your own topic. Say what other people have studied, and then mention that little is known about your own in the literature. So if we want to look at the prevalence and risk factors for hypertension among residents in Lagos, that's Dr. Abdulrazak. So what is the justification for this study? You need to justify why you are comparing rural and urban. Why? Why are you comparing rural and urban? This justification is the place where you must state clearly why you are comparing them. So you want to mention what other people have studied. Maybe Ojo and Ojo have studied risk factors for hypertension amongst urban areas in a certain place and discover that is lower than the rural area in that state. Maybe some people have studied that it and then realize that the prevalence of hypertension is higher in the Western world compared to low and middle income countries. I am now wondering whether that pattern exists within a country. So you must settle down and understand your argument and put them under that justification with references. With references. Remember that when you're writing and including the references, it's better to use a software from the beginning. Don't do it manually. because when you want to include new references or delete some, if you do it manually, it will waste your time. So I expect you, between the last time we met and now, to have learned how to use Mendeley Reference Manager or Soterio, anyone you like. Just choose one. I recommend Mendeley. Choose one, learn how to use it. It doesn't take too much time. You can learn it in a day. Settle down and learn that one first before you start writing. Then start writing and ensure that you include references in everything you write. Look, any statement you want to make and there is no reference to back it up, don't bother. Don't bother making it, because you'll still delete it at the end of the day. Whether in introduction, in literature review, just make sure that anything you want to write, there's a reference that is helping you to say it. Yes, you know that hypertension, the risk factors of hypertension is likely to be higher among urban people in urban area. But you just know, but you can't say it by yourself. So you can only look for Olarewaju Etol, Odofin Etol online, who have studied it and they have come up with some figures. So maybe Odofin and her friends studied hypertension in urban area, and you know the figure to be higher than what Bankole and others studied in rural areas. So that's what you know, that, oh, these figures, there's a disparity, but you really want to confirm if urban really have a higher prevalence. So those are the things you put in that justification. Is it clear? I want to be sure that I'm not wasting my time. Somebody is listening to me. So please
We are
answer.
with you, ma.
Okay.
Yes,
Very
We are
much
with you,
clear,
ma.
ma'am. We're with you,
So
ma'am.
this
Thank you,
this,
ma'am.
this justification has a special mark. Me, I will tell you from the beginning how we score. When it's time to score your dissertation or your project for undergraduate, this introduction is 10 marks. 10 marks. The summary is 10 marks. Literature review, 20. Methodology, I think 20 too. So it's the 20, 20, 10, 10, discussion 10. So don't spend your whole semester writing introduction, methodology, literature review. Remember, that's just 50 marks. And then you now waste time, and towards the end, when everybody is ready to submit, you rush the discussion, rush the conclusion, recommendation. Some people will write discussion, conclusion, recommendation, summary in 2 days. Tell me, how will you score good marks if you write in 2 days something that is almost equivalent to what you wrote in 3 months? So if somebody is telling you that project is difficult and it's taking you 1 month now to write proposal, you are already undermining the score you could have at the end. So you need to work fast and conclude this introduction on time. So when you finish writing this justification and you're sure that you've written where the gaps are, what other people, the gaps mean what other people have not studied. What other people have not studied. That's what is called gaps. So you need to, that's why there's no shortcut. You must read what other people have studied, be clear about it, state it in that justification, reference it. Then you now state what other people have not studied. The next statement will be that this is the reason why you are studying it. So other people have not studied XYZ. Hence, this study seeks to determine this XYZ. The next part after that is the relevance. Some people mix this relevance, they mix it up and call it rationale, but it's not rationale, it's relevance. So make sure you are not confused. You don't join that confusion, because rationale is the same as justification. So you cannot have justification and have rationale. The next thing you have after justification is relevance. And it's an English word, so it's pretty straightforward. And what you're seeking to write under relevance is, after studying this project, and so what will it be useful for? It explores what the dissertation, or let's say just what the research will be useful for. What will it be useful for? So if you have studied past projects, which I expect you to have done, even people that are not in my group, they've come to my office to collect past projects to study. So if you have studied past projects and you've studied how people write introduction, you will notice that at the end of the introduction, you see statements like, this study will be useful for policymakers, for healthcare workers, for health researchers, to know this and that. So you just have to think of the people that this project, the results will be useful for. Who will the results be useful for? What will it be useful for? Explore who and what the research will be useful for. If you can get that well, that means you score the mark under relevant, because there's a score for every part. That's why you can't just say, I'm writing introduction, you just lump up everything. There's a score for justification. If your magnitude is okay, other aspects are okay, and your justification is zero, you cannot export the score for statement of the problem. You cannot export it for justification. You must pay attention to each part of this introduction. And then after the rationale and the relevance, what is the next part? On a fresh page, you have objectives. There are some mistakes that people make and they are pardonable, but some are not pardonable. Some, you just label yourself as a bad student. One of them is for you to write your objectives on the same page with the introduction. Objective is on a fresh page. It's not the same as introduction, but it's part of chapter 1. It's a part of chapter 1. So on a fresh page, write objectives. The title of that page is objectives. But you have general objectives and specific objectives. It's not aim. Aim is the old word. So I hope somebody is listening to me. Because if I see aim in your work, I can return it to you and I won't read it. So you are getting on my bad side, and I don't want to show that bad side. So you have general objectives, you have specific objectives. You don't lump up everything. The general objectives is just one general objective, and it's very straightforward. It means you just quote your title. That's it. Everything in your title. Just quote it. That's your general objective. Then specific objectives. You know, some of you, you are showing me pepper within these few weeks. If you write a general objective, your specific objectives must be inside that general objective. You cannot you cannot generate specific objectives that we can't see in the general. They are not new. It's the same thing. The only thing you're doing is that you are breaking it down. So the general objectives, it quotes the title. It just quotes the title. More or less like you are just adding to determine or to study whatever is in your title. Just write it like that. That's your general objective. Then you break down the components of the title. You break down. If you have started your introductions and speaking now, you will just be editing your work. Because if you present anything that goes against these rules, I'll just call the next person. And until you present well, I'm not reading any nonsense. I'm not going to read. But when you present well and it shows that you're on top of your game, that's when I'm ready to read. I don't read trash. So I'm allergic. I'm allergic to reading nonsense. I read what people understand and they've written well. So your general objective just quotes your title to study whatever is in your title, to determine just quote it like that. Then specific objectives, you pick each component of your title and write it out. That's your specific objective. So can somebody please volunteer and tell us your general objective and specific objectives so that we use it as an illustration? Undergraduates, please. Somebody, an undergraduate student, please volunteer your topic and specific objectives. Anita,
Okay.
who is speaking?
Yolanda, ma. Queen.
Okay, Yolanda, go ahead.
Okay, good evening, ma.
Good evening.
My topic is knowledge, attitudes, and practices of family planning methods among women of reproductive age in primary healthcare centers in Surulere, Lagos State. Now, my general objective to understand the knowledge,
No,
attitude,
you cannot understand. No. To study.
to study the knowledge, attitudes, and practices of family planning methods among women of reproductive age, primary healthcare centers in Surulere, Lagos State. Then specific objectives to assess the attitudes towards family planning.
So what is the first component in your topic? Is the attitude?
No, my knowledge.
So why are you jumping to attitude? Where are you jumping to?
Okay, ma'am. To understand.
You are not understand. There's no understanding in this work at all. So
to study.
So when you study for general objective, and you now want to break it down for knowledge, you determine the level of knowledge. You determine the level of knowledge. And everybody listening to me on this Zoom call, please note that when you want to determine the level of knowledge, you must score. Cannot determine knowledge by just asking questions. And then you are telling us 75% got this one right, 90% got this one wrong. No, you must score every question and then add them up so that you can have a summary score that will show the level of knowledge. Most people would have knowledge in their study. So open your ears now and hear me. You determine the level of knowledge. Don't write any other thing. Don't try to write any flowering language. I'm not going to take it. Determine level of knowledge. Yolanda, what's the next one? Attitude.
To assess their attitudes.
To assess the attitude.
Okay.
Everybody sleeping or drinking coffee, listen now. You assess attitude. Don't say you are investigating, you are putting any kind of language. Just assess attitude, simple, and go home. Next one.
To identify the most commonly used family planning methods among these women.
Identify most commonly used method. Next one.
To determine the factors affecting the uptake of family planning among women of reproductive age.
So you determine factors. Thank you. And that settles objective. So after that, you begin chapter 2 and you start to write your literature review. Is that clear? Any question, undergraduates? Any question or comment? Even if your comment is to say what you have understood, I like to hear a comment. Anita, is Queen your older sister? Oji?
Good evening, ma.
Good evening. Do you know
No,
Queen Oji?
I don't know. I don't know Queen Ojima.
So we have Oji, two Ojis. There's a Queen Oji, a postgraduate student on this Zoom call. So you better greet her now.
Good evening, Miss Queen. Nice to meet you.
Good evening, Mrs. Queen Oji. Anita is greeting you. All right. Okay, so maybe Mrs. Oji is still drinking coffee. She can't talk yet. Anybody, any question, any concern about introduction?
Good evening, Anita. Sorry.
Any concern about introduction? Gone after tonight?
So,
I'm
good
not.
evening, ma.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma.
Good evening.
So, okay, I
Sorry.
wanted to
Finish.